Hi folks, welcome back to Stacey Can. Today I am making strawberry rhubarb jam. And I've posted this a few years ago. It's one of my first videos that I've done, but I decided to redo it because a few things have changed. So this is going to be more of the updated version of this recipe, which is why you want to use the most recent recipes that you can possibly find. And tested, preferably tested. So the ingredients that you need, you need a total combined of 4 cups of prepared fruit. And they were calling rhubarb fruit in this. So you need 2 1/4 cups of exactly crushed strawberries, which it equals about 1 quart of strawberries when you're buying them. So it's probably like 2 of these containers or one of those plastic containers that's about this big. It's about 2 1/4 cups. And then 1 3/4 cups of rhubarb. And that's about 1 to 1.5, about 1.5 pounds of rhubarb. When you buy it at the store, just weigh it. And you're also going to need a package of SURE-JELL, which I did not. Here's the SURE-JELL, but this is the low sugar, no sugar pectin. You actually have to use full sugar pectin for this recipe because rhubarb does not have we're adding a lot more sugar to this. This is going to be a full sugar recipe because rhubarb does not have an acid in it. We're not adding an acid like lemon juice to this. So I'm showing this box. The pink box is the low sugar, no sugar. You actually need the yellow box for that. And I thought I had some, and I don't. So I'm not, but I have the ball full sugar or pectin. So I'm going to be using this today. And you just need to have 5 tablespoons of this to equal what is in a box of SURE-JELL. So just keep that in mind you can mix your pectins a little bit with that. So that's what you need there. You need 1/2 cup of water. You need, as I mentioned, the pectin and 6 cups of sugar. And that needs to be measured into a separate bowl, which I've already done here. Measure that into a separate bowl. And then you can, as an option, to have 1/2 teaspoon of butter that can cut back on the foam. I never do that for me because I don't really care. If my family has a problem with that aesthetic, then they can make their own jam. Aren't I nice? The tools that you need. If you want to do a gel test, and I'll show you how to do that, you would need a glass of ice water. And so having a glass with a spoon in it, or a plate, a cold plate that you could use for that too. And but you want to put that in the freezer because that's how you could do a gel test with that if you want. You're going to need some knives. You'll need your some measuring spoons and a cup to measure out your sugars, and also the berries and the rhubarb. The other tools that you will need is definitely a potato masher to mash up, or a potato rice or whatever, something to mash up those strawberries after we clean them and cut off the tips here. You're gonna need a ladle. You'll need your jar lifter, our headspace tool, and a lid lifter. I'm not using, and also a big spoon to stir. I am not bubbling today, so I don't bubble with jam because it sets up too quickly and I think it adds more air into it. And I've double checked this with the extension office and they kind of agree as well. So jam is one of those things that you don't need to bubble. And I'll talk more about that when we get to that point. But the strawberries that I have, I did get from a local farm here. I'm in Oregon. We have had the wettest spring ever, and the strawberries, this is second week of June, and the strawberries just came out. So they're not the best looking strawberries, which is a little disappointing because we've been so wet. But I like supporting our local farms, so and they do still taste better than store-bought, so I love Oregon berries. Oregon strawberries are fantastic. They're on the vine longer than what you would get in California or some of the southern states. They're on the vine. It takes them a little bit longer to sweeten up and stay on the vine and ripen, so they get a lot more sugar in it. And they don't have that white hollowness on the inside. They're often some of the Oregon berries, especially the hood berries. These are not hoods, but some of the hood berries are just like bright red all the way through. It's just when you cut them open, they're just, and like little pieces of candy. They're delicious. So anyway, that's what we have to get started. And so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm just rinsing the berries here like this, cutting off the stem end, and then just cutting it in half before popping it into the pot here. See, look how beautiful these strawberries are. They're pretty red all the way through. and some are more so than others. And then I just take the potato masher, and then we just mash away until we get it 2 1/4 cups. And we mush until we get to this consistency. Here's something that's a little bit different than last time, which is we're heating up the rhubarb first in a saucepan, and we're adding 1/2 cup of water to that. And I'm just gonna bring it up to just kind of a quick boil, and then we're gonna drop it to a simmer and cover it for 2 minutes until it softens. And they do suggest, and as I assumed correctly, reading further, that we do use finely chopped rhubarb. And now it is coming to a boil, so I'm gonna go ahead and cover it and reduce the heat to about medium low. And we're gonna simmer this for 2 minutes or until the rhubarb gets soft. So I have the crushed berries in the pot. That is a definite measurement of 2 1/4 cups of crushed strawberries. And then we are measuring out exactly 1 3/4 of a cup of the rhubarb here too, which I had already measured prior to putting it into the pot, but just double checking, those directions were pretty specific to make sure to measure again when after you boil it. So I did do that. And the other thing we're gonna do is I have the pectin here. I've already put in 1/4 cup of sugar from the pre-measured. I've already measured out 6 cups of sugar in a bowl, and then took 1/4 cup of that sugar and mixed it in with the pectin. And the reason why you want to do that is because if you just dump the pectin in straight into here, it clumps up. It can clump up pretty easily, and the sugar just helps keep it from clumping. So we're going to go ahead and sprinkle that in here as well, and we're going to bring this up to a boil. And we're gonna stir this constantly until it comes up to a full boil. All right, we got a nice boil that we can't stir away. And I'm gonna go ahead and add in all of the sugar. Close your eyes, this kind of hurts. Because it's 6 cups of sugar to 4 cups of fruit. But you need the sugar if you're not using a low sugar pectin for preservation purposes. It just, it helps to modify the water content for safe shelf storage. So the sugar replaces the water, and then things don't get moldy. So we're gonna continually stir this until it comes to a rolling boil, and then we will, a big rolling boil that you cannot store away, and I'll set a timer for 1 minute. Now I have a rolling boil that I cannot stir away. I've set the timer for 1 minute, and you see how it gets foamy? I should have mentioned prior to bringing this to a boil, you could have put in the teaspoon of butter. You can do it right now if you want to, but I just don't think it makes that much of a difference. But see how much, this is why you need a big stock pot for this, because it does boil up, it really climbs up the side of the pot. The 1 minute timer has gone off, so this is the part where we can go ahead and do a pectin test. You can also skim the foam if you want, but I would wait until it kind of settles a little bit before skimming anything. And then I do have my glass of ice water here with my spoon in it. I prefer doing it this way versus the plate test, but you could do whatever you want. And this is where you just want to see if it's gonna set or not. And it just takes a second. It's still pretty steamy, so you want to just give it. Ooh, look at that! Look at that drip. There's a drip at the bottom. This is a good set. It's kind of nice, rocking back and forth. And it's sheeting on the spoon very well, so it's like, see those drips like that? This is a good set for pectin. And again, you can take a spoon and skim off the foam here if you want, and there are people who love it and they just like to eat the foam. I don't. I'm gonna go ahead and jar it. Got the jars heating up in the canner at 180 degrees. So I'm bringing out the jars because you don't want to put a hot item into a cold jar. You can shock the jar. And then I am giving this kind of a quick stir before scooping it up and filling the jar because the fruit can kind of float to the top a little bit. And we're filling this to a 1/4 inch headspace. And I'm doing good there. And then I'm using the lid water with my paper towel and just cleaning the rim. Get your lid lifter here. And I do use my finger just kind of hold onto the lid a little bit while I pull the lid lifter off the magnet because it's got a magnet to it. Take your ring or your band, whatever, we call them rings, and just fingertip tight. It is hot potato, so be careful. And then you want to just gently lift your jar and lift it up and over into the canner. Do not tip or tilt. I've got all the jars in the canner here, and I do have an inch of water, over an inch of water covering the tops of the jars. I measured that out. And I've set the heat up to high and the burner up to high. And when it comes to a rolling boil, we'll go ahead and set the timer. I have a rolling boil going in the canner, so I've set the timer for 10 minutes for my altitude. And I have more information on the various altitudes up here in the corner and also down below in the show notes. The 10-minute timer has gone off, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the heat. And then I'm going to gently, very carefully lift the lid. Make sure to lift it away from your face. That's a facial you don't want. That steam is hot. And I'm going to set another timer for 5 minutes. We're going to let the food in the jars settle and the water to quit boiling, and this helps with the sealing process. The 5-minute timer has gone off, so we're going to go ahead and remove the jars. And remember, when we remove them, you want to lift it up and over. Do not tip or tilt. The water that's on top of the jars will evaporate on its own, so don't tip it to drain it. Just like that. And check out that color. And this is how we make strawberry rhubarb jam properly compared to what I did a couple years ago. Again, the recipe changed a little bit. So it's always good to double check the recipes and making sure that you have the most accurate one, because our foods are changing, as well as new methods and new testing that comes out to make sure we have good, shelf-stable, safe foods to eat. So that's how we do it. The recipe is down below, and while you're down there, please like and subscribe because that does help, and share amongst your friends too. That does help me. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feedback, concerns, by all means, reach out to me. I'm on Facebook at Stacey Can. You can add me on Instagram and TikTok at Stacey Can. My website is www.staceycancan.com, and my email is info@staceycancan.com. And I'm on LinkedIn at Stacey Can. Thanks so much again for joining me today, and until next time, happy canning.